I have to-do lists all over the place in this project, and I decided to just record myself while trying to solve these. And one of these things is that when you have selected the LFO modulator, then you can change the waveform. As you can see, triangle, square wave, saw wave. Anyway, what I don't like about this thing yet is that the parameter for selecting the waveform is just a button that you have to click to go one step thingy. I had different solutions in mind and I already started implementing one of them. Now I just have to find out which of these that is and go on with it. So solution 1, detach wavetables from LFO modulator, instead they are in the matrix. That is actually what I did in my ModSystem object. I made a shared pointer WaveTables object, and the LFOs, when I create them, only get a copy of that, so that they can also point to the same WaveTables object, obviously. And they're also very useful since the matrix is replaced with a new matrix all the time, that by wrapping it around with a share pointer, it will still point to the same object then. And for some reason that doesn't work with unique pointer. I don't know why anyway. So apparently I used solution 1, but let's just check out the other ones. Solution 2, get modulator from here when the waveform chooser wants to have something. Mouse up. At the moment I just go on with the parameter value and then I set the new value and repaint, and paint just draws the name of the thing. My solution here was to get the modulator from here. So in mouse up I would get the modulator from the modulation matrix, which is not exactly complicated, but the problem is when you call get modulator of this thing, it returns a shared pointer modulator to some modulator, but this is only the base class and each modulator is different. And of course you would want to have the LFO modulator, and since the wavetable was still just part of the LFO modulator in my last implementation, the solution would have been that I did not dynamically cast to LFO mod from that, if that is even possible. I've not tried. And then I could implement a get wavetable function for LFO mod and use that. But I decided that this is kinda dangerous, because just casting a modulator to a different type of modulator, that sounds very wasteful and dangerous, because I'm not really sure what casting actually is in a technical sense. I usually only use casts for very primitive types, so I did not choose solution 2. Solution 3, implement modulator method to give back a certain data. So the idea of this solution was that the modulator base class has a method which gets back a vector of shared pointer void, because that would be able to hold any data, and its input argument might be something like a string or so. If the LFO modulator overrides this class, which would be virtual, I would just say if this input string is WaveTables also, then the method will return the WaveTable. That could have worked. That would be a nice way to solve this, but the problem is only one modulator would use it. So it would kind of be a very cool solution for something that is not really needed a lot. But the cool thing is that it would make it possible to add more stuff like that. So that would have been a cool solution. Maybe I will go back to this solution later when I have more use cases for this, but maybe not. So since I already started with this solution, let's just go on. Detach wavetables from LFO modulator. I did this. LFO modulator references to the wavetables. No, not exactly. It also has a shared pointer to them. That's not really important. Waveform chooser can load and display wavetables. That's the next thing. Now at the moment, clicking on this thing will let it go forward one step. So how do I get the wavetable in here? Should I always get it in Paint? I don't think so. I think that could become rather wasteful. So rather, I already put a waveform array in here, apparently, and at the beginning I set it all to 0. So now I'm asking myself, what if I just draw this thing? Let's say the waveform window can can have a value between -1 and 1 because it's kind of typical for a signal. Then looping through it, we would want to map it to the current X value on the screen by doing this. Now we have the X value, and the Y value would be the waveform itself times 0.5 plus 0.5, because that would already map it from -1, 1 to just 0, 1, and then times get height for mapping it to the whole height. Now as a width I will just use 1, and the height is maybe get height minus Y. And now I can fill rect. If this is 0, then it will be 0 times 0.5, so still 0 plus 0.5, so 0.5 times get height, so it will be in the middle. I think we can already check out what it does. Yes, it does what I expected it to do, but it has some aliasing because apparently 64 is a big number for this thing. Already a little bit better. Let's go even deeper. And now, of course, we want to see the sine wave. So we have to fill the waveform thing with the sine wave data. Now, how do we get this? Okay, I think I have to actually change my mod system a little bit. My mod system gets bigger and bigger all the time because I keep running into situations like this where I just need a new detail from it. What is a wavetable? A wavetable is a vector of floats. And the vector of floats is the WaveTables. So we want to return a wavetable. Get WaveTable. Add WaveTable index. Return WaveTables. Get table add WT index. I know this method does not exist yet, but we make it exist now. Great, I guess. Audio processor. No, wait, I just call it processor in here. Matrix. Get wavetable. Of a new waveform. Const auto wavetable. Alright, this is the current wavetable. Let's just see if this works and does not crash. See, it does crash, so we have to be more careful here, apparently. Get table does not work because I is 1 and tables 1 returns null because everything is unable to read memory. I already suspected something like this might happen. Okay, I just had a different idea. What if get wavetable just returned the shared pointer to the WaveTables? In which case the WaveTable would not need a getTable method anymore because we could just use the operator itself to get value from the table, just like the Modulatr does. We'll still need this. So apparently this works, at least up until now. Now we can actually write stuff into our waveform. So we need a for loop for the waveform again. And now we want to find out which sample we get from the wavetable. Let's say wavetable operator this with the phase and the table index equals the waveform at I. So now we just have to fill in the missing gaps. Table index is the easiest thing of these. because it's just this. And now the phase is also very easy. So theoretically, this should work. Well, theoretically. So things are null again, unable to read memory. So why? We have chat pointer WaveTables, and we can get a WaveTables object. I go to the audio processor, I get the mod matrix object, and I call get WaveTables. Actually I made a reference, but it also doesn't work without a reference. Why was it even possible to put a reference there? I mean, I'm returning something that is defined to not be a reference. So apparently this sucks. And as you have probably seen, the fact that it sucks depends on the fact that it's null pointer. Get WaveTables just returns a null pointer, even though I clearly made WaveTables in my mod matrix object, but they seem to not survive a certain point in the project. Actually, what happens here? The copy constructor, maybe that is the issue. Yeah, I made a custom copy constructor, and if I am not explicit about the WaveTables getting the other WaveTables, then maybe that is the issue. Because if you are explicit about the copy constructor, then I suppose you have to be explicit about every object in it. I started being explicit about this because it is a big functionality for my thread safe pointer thing that I made a video about. And really this seems to do the trick. Now I just have to make sure that it's also loaded on Init. Or let's call it update waveform with some WaveTables index. This would do these things then. Because now I can actually go ahead and put this stuff up here as well in the constructor, instead of initializing to 0. Now I don't have to make a new waveform. And that should work. Yes, it does.